Welcome to the Hazard Class Podcast. This is the podcast where I ask my stupid questions to some of the smartest people in and around the world of emergency services. My guest this week is a veteran firefighter and captain with more than 2 decades in the fire service, and the founder and editor-in-chief of Crackyl Magazine. In addition to his operational experience, he has built one of the fire service's leading platforms focused on firefighter wellness, fitness, leadership, and culture. Through Crackyl, he has worked with firefighters, instructors, and industry professionals across North America to help advance conversations around longevity and performance on the job. It's my pleasure to welcome Kory Pearn. Kory, thanks for joining me.
Of course. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you. And so, as is the format of the show, we usually roll it back, the time dial all the way back to the beginning. And I usually try to figure out the whys, which is for you, the question, why the fire service?
Yeah, it's a great question. For me, it was something I found later in life. I was coming out of high school. My parents owned a refrigeration company. So that was, my plan was to take that over. And I loved everything about the trade. So I got my apprenticeship started right out of high school, and started, got my apprenticeship and my gas ticket, our license by 23 years old. And I thought, what else is out there? You think you know what you're getting into, and then all of a sudden I started having conversations about firefighting and different things. I went to an information night, and I came home from that, and it was like, I want to be a firefighter. I grew up in the country. We didn't have fire trucks driving by all the time. I had never visited a firehouse or station. It was something I never thought of. And then once I kind of had that, that bug, the fire bug, I couldn't shut it off. I started the next weekend getting like my first aid and all the things I needed for prerequisites to be able to apply. So kind of fast forward 2 years from that day, attending, getting my certifications and things like that. And I just never kind of looked back. And I was fortunate enough to get hired, and have a fire department take a chance on me type thing. And I've just been internally grateful ever since. From there, it was a new world that I never knew existed. This legacy of firefighters taking care of their children on their off days and all these things. I never knew that was even a thing. And those are the small things that I'm just so grateful, because I was able to play a role in my daughter's lives, the way I wanted to, the way my dad never had the chance to do that. So it was something it was a new world. It was a new world. And then from there, I started helping firefighters get hired. I started when I was going through the process, I was doing a lot of journaling, a lot of writing, and kind of creating a roadmap to getting hired and being something that's palatable to a fire department. And it was really just kind of thinking back, having my dad run a company and kind of growing up in the lion's den, as I call it. I was always looking from an employer perspective and not an employee. So I've always had that brain. And so looking at a fire department, trying to hire and commit to a firefighter, to me, it was always, what can you do, to be a good hire and, not mess it up type thing. So I've always kind of been intrigued by that. And I worked in that space for many years. I put on my own firefighter career expos, where I had fire departments come and talk about what they're looking for. I had recruits come in and talk, and try to learn more about the job. And then, So it was just, for me, it was just kept unlocking these new doors that I never thought was possible. I hated school. Like most firefighters, we are tactile. And so this was, I couldn't even turn a computer on when I started all this. So, it's been evolving ever since. But
so, you've kind of, I don't know if it would be technically considered the golden era of firefighter hiring, but like when you got in, 22 odd, 3 odd years, is that about right? That was the fire service hiring industry was booming. There was like massive hiring lists for small amounts of positions. And it was hyper competitive. And obviously we've seen that landscape shift drastically in the fire service. How is the fire service failing that mission currently? And what can we do to combat the challenges?
Yeah. I mean, I think we could probably talk a whole hour on this, because it really is the holy grail of what, I think the nut we're all trying to crack, in the sense of how do we get firefighters, or new firefighters, new interest, and have that longevity. And I think, it has changed, where I think there's too much information out there. I think we're scaring people. And we're focusing on, I think you go where you look, and we're focusing on certain things too much. And there's a great part of this job that, and this level of service that, I think it's hard to beat out there. And it's a certain type of person that falls into this line of work. And, and it's in mining out those individuals, they may never have thought of it. Like myself, I never thought this was possible. And now I can't see myself doing anything else really, or having it part of my life. And, so we need to find those individuals, but we don't do it by scaring them. We don't do it by, I think it has to be, they have to, there's a lot of variables in firefighting, but there's also, how are we supporting these individuals? What are we doing? How do we, we can't play every scenario out, but, you get to be part of something that, again, it's hard to find. And if it's something that you need, or you're looking for, you're a pack animal. There's no other better job.
So how do we, especially as someone in media that is, especially in your case, trying to advocate for some of these, maybe less sultry components of the career field, how do we appropriately advocate for the resources we need for mental health, physical fitness, cardiac health, go down the line of all the quote unquote negative things about the fire service? How do we appropriately advocate for those things without potentially turning off new candidates?
Sure. And it doesn't matter whether your career or, how you serve, volunteer, the issues are all the same. It's all about, the work I'm doing is staying, it has to be intentional. I really think you can't serve for 25, 30 years and show up on the other side and hope you're lucky to retire with some life to your years. Mm-hmm. I think that is where we start. I think we work backwards. We don't, we train, we do all these things, we evolve with our tactics and our structure, our communication, all these things, but we leave the firefighter to chance. And that's the work that I'm doing is, there is testing, there are, exposures and things we need to mitigate where we can, when we can. It's not a perfect system, but this is where our focus has to be, and I think if we're intentional and we're looking at burnout and all these things, we are overbuilt. We are overbuilt to take on more because we are, we're just driven to see what we're made of. And when we take that to its limits and we're at capacity, and then anything happens where, you whatever, you're injured, you pull your Achilles heel or whatever, it doesn't matter what takes you out of, I call it a current, what takes you out of the fire service current, you break. And it's because we suck at that part of it. We are not used to, not playing the game and being benched. And those are the things that we need to preload in our people.
So would you say, in terms of overlaying that concept with our hiring concept, that it's not so much about not being, forthcoming and proactive about the problems, but also being proactive about pushing the benefits and marketing? I've heard people say before that we have a marketing problem in the fire service, that people don't actually understand what we do and the positive things. They just see the headlines or whatever, or they might else. So would you say that it's not so much about hiding the bad, but it is about promoting the good?
Yeah, I mean, it is that for sure. And you will be hurt and you will be injured at some point. That's just, we all have that. The longer you're in this game, it's just hard to be, you're playing your A game all the time. We are, it's just the way it is. So, and it doesn't even have to be us. It could be your spouse or your partner that's going through, cancer, or it doesn't even have to be us. It just, we have to know that we have an identity outside of this job. That identity has to be supported. It has to equal and balance out the way we serve and our headspace that we have for this job. When you come home, you have to learn how you polarize. It's not by accident. There's a routine, maybe it is a walk, maybe it is certain things, but you have to get back to a neutral position somehow and get out of that fight mode, because it affects your relationships. It affects how you parent. It affects how you are, to be with in the room. It's like, these are the things that we can control. And this is the space that I think we have the most leverage in supporting our firefighters. And yeah.
And who holds the burden to solve that problem? Is it the individual? Is it the company unit? Is it the fire administration? Is it the city? Or is it kind of a piece of each? Or what would you think?
Well, why can't it be the individual, I guess, is the question. Mm-hmm. Why do I have to rely on my management to support me to get me back to neutral? Mm-hmm. I just think it's something that you're wishing in one hand and hoping in the other. And I think, I don't know if that's something that's even tangible. And maybe that's the way that we've been looking at it. I think it's natural for, especially to be, it's natural to be on the floor, I guess, and kind of saying, well, management should do this, or this is how they should support me and things like that. But why do we leave it to chance like that? Mm-hmm. On that macro level, I know what works for me. I know my own family and ecosystem that I need to be who I am too. So why would I leave that up to my management to support me in that? So there's that. And then there is a responsibility from a management support in order to make sure that we're, while we're at work and doing these things, it's not an afterthought either. When we're designing stations, when we're looking at, alerting systems and that heart bang that happens when we're responding, those are the responsibilities, in my opinion, of the system. So who's managing that system? Those are the things that I think that's a space that they should be in. I can't go in and give myself my own alerting system or, and do certain things. I can't. Having a second set of gear and things like that, that's where your management, I think, needs to come in and support.
Mm-hmm. Do you see
things like that? Those things all matter. Retrofitting, making sure there's, segregation in the fire, stations and firehouses for decon and things to happen. Mm-hmm. Time and space has to happen for that, from a captain or from, an operating side, that they also have, we have our obligations there as well. But, that firefighter showing up in the morning, though, that's on me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you see a lack of managerial support as an excuse that members of the fire service are using to not take care of themselves? I think as you expand on that concept, the first thing that comes to my mind is that, wow, if we took it as our own personal burden, the excuse that I don't feel supported enough, at least at the very least falls to the backside of the problem. So do you think that, I know in talking to Ryan Provencher, he was talking about like this burden of ownership and like this mindset shift in performance and wellness, and, considering yourself an athlete and considering yourself someone that has to be taken care of to perform at your best. But it is a cultural shift, and it is a personal shift in the way that you view yourself as a firefighter, as an employee, as someone that has this duty to act and perform at a high level. So where does that overlay? Are we beating ourselves up by not owning the problem more than we should?
Yeah, we need our own ownership in this. There's not, again, the version that I show up for duty, that's my responsibility. Mm-hmm. From there, if I'm in the right headspace, I've done the right things, and showing up with capacity, then I'm not looking for outs and things for making it everyone else's problem why I'm showing up and not being, ready for what I'm doing. But again, when I get there, that's where the operations side happens. When I get there and I've kept my responsibility and my obligation, then when I show up for duty, then I need to be met as well. I need certain things. I need to be able to have a fire and come back and make sure my crew gets the time and, the space that they need to decon and do all these things, get their gear, do the things that they need, and be able to play those roles. Is where, there's, I think it's it's not gray. It's not a gray area. I think you control what you can. They control the environment that you do what you do in, and everybody goes home. Like that is a perfect world.
So if we as the firefighters are owning more of this burden than we maybe have historically, how do we handle when we have a member out of control, say mental health crisis or some sort of health crisis that maybe tips them on edge, where they've lost the ability, or at least it's been exorbitantly more difficult to manage that burden? At what point is it the burden of some outside entity to come in and be that support?
Yeah, I mean, so just to back this up a little bit, like the space that I'm in, there's things that are going to happen, and we cannot play every scenario and thing. And there, we will have our firefighters that have those moments. And, I had my moment. So, but what the work I'm doing is really kind of coming back. And, if we don't have that elephant in the room in the first place, then I think that's where my work is. So, again, we look at over a career, we have someone coming in the door, how are they looking forward and trying to preserve the best thing you can do is be 23 years in and being preserved as close as you can to how you walked in for the first day.
Yeah.
That's the work. And are we going to have things that fall through the cracks? Absolutely. Could I tomorrow have something happen in my life that I completely derail? Absolutely. Why? Because I'm a human being, not a machine. But while I am showing up and again, if I don't have that elephant in the room, if I'm not out 3 nights in a row and showing up for my crew in the morning, burnt out and bloodshot eyes and having a pity party for myself, then that's already better, right? It's a better scenario. Maybe now I'm running a fire scene. You're not getting this tired, hungover firefighter. You know what I mean? Like it's just everything kind of gets better. And this is where I kind of get goosebumps, because it's like, I feel like I'm empowering myself at that point, And I am not saying I'm perfect. I mean, there's always something. We show up and things happen, and your life changes, your careers change. You have young kids, you could be going through a divorce, like all these things. I'm trying to, I'm trying to avoid your divorce as best I can, to know that, that communication and all these things, hopefully you don't get to the point where that happens, where there's, but if it does happen, then, we need that space as well. We show up, people are going to go through things. Our kids could be sick. Like, I mean, who knows, right? We went through a pandemic, like we don't know. And so what we do need to do is preserve what we can. And, so when members are going through something, we have enough bandwidth to support them. If we're all maxed out and stressed out and strung out, and then if you're going through something, I won't have the bandwidth to even look your way, because I'm dealing with my own shit. Yeah. So it's like, this is where we gotta, we need to do better. And I think I say, like, if I can do better and show up with some capacity, I can get my head out of the sand, and I might be able to recognize that you're having a bad day.
Yeah.
That's kind of the thing, right? So I am not oblivious, and I think I'm fragile, and I think that's the part that we're missing. It's okay to be fragile, and it's, all this. I love being vulnerable now. Like, I think it's great, because I'm closer to the person that I actually am. It's not a facade. I play that. And now I have better conversations. They actually help me polarize. They help me with connection and all these things. I can come home and tell my wife, or say, I'm off this morning. I don't know why or what, but I am off. So maybe now's not the time we talk about the renovation that we want to do or something. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just maybe now's not the day, right?
Absolutely. And then that's been a major through line. Obviously, the people that listen to the show consistently know that I went to the Center of Excellence last year. And in the wake of that, I've been very public about it and talking about it. And one of the biggest takeaways of that whole experience was that concept of vulnerability and transparency, and the strength and benefit that comes from that, not only personally, but also relationally, as you speak to people. When you are honest and true and transparent, the depth of relationship and depth of connection you can get is just unmatched. And so to live in a world that's not that is to cheat yourself of the true, for lack of a better term, maybe emotional intimacy that comes in these relationships of even meeting new people or expressing yourself. There's a whole new world that unlocks when you just take the step to allow that transparency and vulnerability. And I think that there's this underlying current, especially in a what we would call a male dominated kind of macho career, that people are resistant to that. But overwhelmingly, as I've kind of been public about my mental health journey, the response is positive. I mean, it seems like everyone's kind of yearning for this same connectivity inside their culture.
Yeah, for sure.
And they just need a catalyst to take that first step and be brave in expressing themselves. And in my experience, it's been pretty much universal that everyone is happy that they did it. I can't think of a single person I've known that has taken that step into transparency and vulnerability that regrets it, which has been a really impactful part of this, journey for me.
Yeah.
All right. So,
it makes sense. Like, so for me, I had built a life outside of the fire service. So when I look at the job, it wasn't the job that broke me. It was the life I built around the job that broke me. So I was managing like 5 different publications. I was traveling, doing sales. I had deadlines pretty much every week. And I loved it. I loved everything about it. And it was like the more that was piled on my plate, it became a bigger challenge. And it was, again, I was overbuilt, and eventually, so my heart started, it was stress. I would put it as, but my heart wasn't pumping properly. I had an atrial fibrillation. And over time, My walls of my heart had thickened. The rejection factor was diminishing. And then I reached a point that I literally was dying, and I was still under this illusion that, I can get myself out of this problem with the same things that got me into the problem. And it was like this, cycle. And I literally was on my deathbed, and I waved the white flag. I told my wife, I can't do this anymore. I mean, this goes on and on many years. And I was off work for a year. And I'll never forget when I was sitting in the hospital bed, when I finally went in, and it was just like, the charade was up. I had been hiding. And I even think now, my relationships at work suffered because I didn't feel good all the time. I just, I felt like shit. And I really think I missed some of the best years probably of my career, where I could have been, I was hiding, I think, in some ways. I mean, I did it really well. Like we're very good at these things. So I would say you can't con a con man. And it's like, we know what to say, when to say it, when to leave. Hey, how you doing? I'm fine. How are you? Like, and then we go home and we're like failing. Like we're just hurting. So this was my breakthrough, and when I was sick and I was doing all these things, I was at my lowest. I framed it as like, I was just grateful it was me and not my kids sitting in the hospital. It wasn't my wife that was in the hospital, and I'm bringing the kids to see her. It was like, this is a me problem. And I didn't know if I was going to be able to be a firefighter anymore. This happened in 2017, and everything I had built was up in the air. And I'm like, I don't even know how I can even continue to be doing this sales job that I had. Like I was in the hospital and still closing magazines. Like it was like I was and I was still in denial in some ways. But anyways, when I did give in, and I was like, okay, so I framed it in a way that was like, okay, now I'm grateful that it's me and not them. Mm-hmm. I was off a year. I had to rebuild myself, and I had to be, I was taken out of every aspect of my life. And anyway, so I ended up quitting that job and saying, if I'm going to work this hard, I'm going to work for us. I'm going to figure us, like, why did I get there? It was a lot of ignorance. I was scared. I was worried. All the things I was trying to avoid happened anyways. So I didn't avoid anything. And I'm like, so if we can get better at going in earlier and getting help earlier, and, anyways, it didn't have to be like that. Right. So
bring me to those moments of, kind of questioning how you got to there, and then what the choices you had previously made were like meant for your future. Like what's going inside your head as everything kind of comes to that, point.
Yeah. I just kept asking myself, why did I think that I was the only one going through this, and why couldn't I tell somebody? Like, I didn't even want anybody to know. Even when I was in the hospital, I had a dialogue with my chief, and I didn't want anybody else to know. And I was like, why? So, my phone's not ringing, and all these things that happen when we're off duty and off work. And then you start getting kind of like, well, no one, you kind of put out by it. And I'm like, well, does anybody even really know that I'm like, why I'm off? So anyway, it just became this, like just epiphany after epiphany. It was just like, we suck at this stuff. We suck at being off, and we suck at, trying to help somebody being off. We don't know what to say. And then we maybe you're busy, so I don't want to bug you. And it's like, why would you be busy and not want to be bugged? Like we have this pack mentality, and you get hurt and I'm not calling you because I think you're busy. It doesn't make any sense to me, but that's me giving myself an out because it's a hard conversation to have,
Yeah. So what did it look like and you kind of already touched on it as you left that one job to move now into starting Crackyl. How do you even start that process? You identify the problem, which I presume, I don't put words in your mouth, but as a gap in the market, which is nobody's talking about how to be a firefighter outside of the job, right? How do we stay fit and healthy and grounded and honestly, inside of the Crackyl ecosystem, there's all these other things like financial help and all these other outside of the job hobbies and whatnot. How did you even go about identifying those pain points and what parts of those you wanted to be a part of or felt like you could be a benefit of?
Yeah, well, I mean, I realized that. So I created these, the pillars of, the health, the lifestyle, fitness, finance, relationships, stress, nutrition. And you just need one of them to fail in that regard that, starts knocking over the other one. So if it's finances, for example, if you're somebody that's driven, by having money in your account, then when you don't have, if you're living paycheck to paycheck or you've got whatever, something happened, then your self-esteem goes out the window, and you need to know that about yourself. And if that's something that is important, then you need to understand your finances. And you know what I mean? Like, we have to learn that these things are connected. That'll affect your relationships. It'll affect how you parent. Again, all these things, because you're stressed out. And, so the finances is a huge one. The more secure we can get if we're working an overtime shift, if you're at that type of department, if you're going to go work when you're supposed to be off, then understand why you're doing that. Understand that it's going to take extra energy and time away from your family. If it's still worth it, then go and do it, but make sure that your family doesn't get this leftovers. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like it's all that balancing act. So when I looked at why I was off, what things were hard for me to talk about, that's where Crackyl came from. It was like, okay, well, let's start exploring where we're overbuilt. Like, let's start looking at that. And then just kind of looking how that changes through your career. So you start out, kind of take on the world. And over time, it gets harder to do certain things, especially raising a family or doing certain things. So the job, if, I'm all over the place because there's so many different, so even like if home becomes a problem, so say you have young kids, you and your spouse are, kind of lacking time together, we'll say, because you're just busy and tethered to those children. What happens is work starts to feel good. So home is work. So then you start submerging more into work because that's where we reward, all of these things, compliance and all these, right? So now you're kicking ass at work, but you're really kind of hiding from a situation that's at home. Mm-hmm. And this is where we start to say, look at, like, you will lose your home for the wrong reasons. And you can have both. And it's like, you can still, do the things at work and understand that the things are rewarded, your hard work's rewarded, all these things, but you can't give your family leftovers. And that's the whole point. And eventually you lose your family, then you have a broken home. Now you know what I mean? I would say you want to double your money, stay married. Like it's,
that's the truth, ain't it?
But all these things matter, and there's nothing really, it's like, oh, just don't do that and then you're fine. It's not like that. Everything is woven together. It's the fabrics of your life, and a hole in any of it will eventually become, the thing that starts to spiral. So,
mm-hmm. So there, I'm going to take what we're talking about right now, which is that family unit, and I'm going to boil us all the way back down to the beginning of your story, which was, you were supposed to be in refrigeration, and now you decided you're going to go run into burning buildings. Yeah. What was your family's thought of this massive career shift?
I don't know, to be honest. All I know is I said I was thinking about this, taking this road and making that change. And I know that everyone thought they could see me doing that. I guess. It was all I really know what, from their perspective, what they were thinking. But, but my wife at the time was my girlfriend, and so we never met. I was never a firefighter when we met. It was something that we both have taken that journey together. And we've gone through all the things, and as I'm trying to figure this out, and even the things I do know, I still come home and we'll still have an argument about something that doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, I don't even care about this. And we just back up. And it's like, that's the it's a hard thing to fight. The why we're doing what we're doing. Again, lack of sleep, maybe the stress, maybe there's things. And so it's never really usually what you're fighting about. It's the other things. It's being seen or being, respected or all those things. It's not really about the dishes in the sink, right?
Yeah, of course.
So, yeah. Another epiphany I had too in the relationship is like figuring out that we're both basically single parents, And that was a huge one for me, because you'd come home and you'd have the same arguments, and she's doing all the things, and she has a full, career as well. So when I'm at nights and she's got the kids, and I come home and then I got the kids, and it's like, it's so easy to kind of implode, I guess, and just ruin your marriage. And then you're like, you know what? Like, we're both doing everything we can. We're both doing a great job. We're both, and it's like, why are we fighting amongst ourselves? Like, so those were big things that happened. And throughout my career, I'm like, holy shit, like we're both basically single parents.
Yeah. So it lends the easy follow-up question, which is, you've presumably been married. You say you were dating and now you're married. You're 20 plus years in.
Yeah.
How on earth does a firefighter has one of the highest divorce rates of any career, I think just behind the military, how do you do it? What's the key to success, if there is one, to making a fire service marriage work in the long term?
Man, I don't know. It's a lot of things. I mean, it's fragile. Like I would say, like we're one argument away from being divorced. Like that's the reality of all these things. It just depends on how right you feel you want to be at the time. And it's not easy. It's not easy. But if we can understand our energy, you have to have hobbies. You have to have things that fulfill you. And, we both can't look at each other to make ourselves whole. I can't come home from being on duty and expect my wife to make me feel better about myself. Like, it's not what we're doing, right? That doesn't work. It doesn't. So I need to know how I get back to being a decent person to be around and, do those things. Right. So, I mean, firefighters like challenges. So, I mean, it should just be, it's the way that, we are, we're good at figuring things out. We just don't figure out the right things at the right times. And I think it has to be a priority. It has to be preloaded. Again, I'm coming home, I'm driving home. I'm thinking about kind of headspace am I in? I'm not, and it's not like I'm talking to myself as I'm driving. It's a quick calibration. I mean, it was like, okay, we didn't have any really shitty calls. Okay. Like it seemed like the crew was good. Like, okay, I'm getting back home. Okay. My daughter's going to work. My wife's working from home today. Okay. It's like you just kind of doing a quick assessment. Right. And I don't want to come in and ruin the energy that she may have created in the home. I think that's another big thing is we come home and we think that because we've been, feels like we've been out battling all shift and we come home and it's like, we want a reward for that. And it's like, it's not my wife's job to reassure me that, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So it's me. I have to come home and kind of come back into the energy that the home is. And this is a different version of myself. The version of myself on duty is different than me at home. And that's important to understand that about ourselves.
So you've talked about the challenge of a firefighter marriage, which I couldn't agree more. But you also talked about how fortunate you felt for the time you've been able to spend with your children. So how are both of those true? And I agree that they are both true. I have two kids myself, and I totally agree. But bring me into that headspace of the parent that also feels fortunate that they get to spend more time with their kids. This career field that's obviously notoriously, it takes from you, despite all the positives, but it also gives you, and in one of those thing is much more time with your kids in theory. So talk to me about your relationship in that regard.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to framing. You know, if I'm at work and I'm being tested at work, and I come home and okay, maybe you have a couple of young kids to take care of, you can look at them as a burden. You can look at them like, if I just need some time, or I just need to go to sleep or whatever. Like, or you could reframe it and say, I just did all these things, but now I get to do these things. And the kids can either drain you or fill your emotional banks, and it was like, those were great days where you could the day was just filled with going to the park and pushing on a swing. Like, it was a simple time in some ways. I'm not saying it was simple, but I'm saying there were little moments where it was like, holy shit, this is amazing. Like, and then you're going back on nights and it's like, I don't know. It's just these little things, right? But to me, it's how you frame things. When I was sick, again, I didn't know if I was, going to be able to do this job anymore. Like, I keep saying to people, like, I get to do this again. Like, when I got hired, I got to do this, and it was almost taken away from me. And it was like, I'm lucky. I'm fortunate. I get to go to work. I get to be a firefighter, and I get to hang out with my crews and do these things, but I also get to go home hopefully after. Yeah. And then, so it's, I don't, and when something's been taken away or possibly been taken away, it's just a different way of looking at things, and I think we get kind of complacent with some of those. And it's not, we don't do it on purpose. It's just life, right? So,
Well, hey gang, if you could just do me a favor and like and subscribe to the podcast, give it a review. It helps it out more than you can imagine. If you follow the show on social media, share the things, like the posts. It's a simple thing for you to do, and it really makes a big difference for us. So thank you. This podcast is brought to you in part by Hikes Boots. You can tell a lot about a brand by the way they choose to advertise, and Hikes didn't ask me to say anything specific. What they did was they sent me 2 pairs of structural fire boots, the Fire Eagle Air and the Fire Eagle Extreme, to kind of compare. One is a traditional pull-up boot. One is a lace-up boot. And I'll be honest, I was skeptical of the lace-up boot at first, and it's so comfortable. It's crazy. Both the boots really fit kind of like a tennis shoe, but they're super supportive, super comfortable, long duration instance. My feet are like walking on clouds. Is great. So if you want to find out more information, check it out at hikesusa.com. That's HAIXUSA.com, or check the show notes for the direct link. Rigaku. Today's episode is brought to you by Rigaku Analytical Devices, who are the folks that have been perfecting the 1064 nanometer ramen longer than most of us have even been in hazmat. And they just launched their new 4th generation handheld analyzer, the Icon X. It's built specifically for real world stuff hazmat teams deal with on a daily basis. We're talking about dirty powders, mixed materials, dyes, colors, and all the things that make other instruments throw a tantrum. And this new platform isn't just an upgrade, it's a whole new toolbox. It supports new accessories, including standoff analysis, so you can get answers without getting too close. If you want an analyzer that's evolving right alongside the hazmat world, check out Rigaku's newest ramen at rigakuanalytical.com, or check the show notes. Back to the show. It's a perfect segue into what I wanted to ask you, which is, you kind of have this career moment that there is the before and the after, I would presume. And so I also would say that, running a magazine, having some level of a grasp of the workload that you're probably dealing with based off of the work that I do, I think it would be a stretch to say you're not a busy guy. So what does Kory's life look like differently in the before and the after?
Yeah, I think so. Okay, so when I started Crackyl, it was like, okay, I want to create a magazine. That was what made sense to me because I had been in publishing for 11 years at that point. So I thought I could stand up this magazine, and I knew it was going to be a lot of work. So I had set, some boundaries and things. I'm like, I'm not going to create this magazine and lose my marriage, basically. If you like, for one, I'm not going to start this magazine and become a shitty parent. I'm not going to start this magazine and try to, like everything had to be in view, right? Otherwise, what's the point? I mean, I just become the product of the environment and the way I go. So
yeah.
So when I started it, I had intentions of doing things. So it's evolved. I am busier now than I have ever been. I'm probably the equivalent of 10 magazines at this point, it feels like. But I do have boundaries, and I do have days where I am maxed out. I can't deny that. But this work is so important to me, and so nearly losing myself, and then also losing others along the way to suicide and heart attacks, and losing mentors, losing I'm just trying to I see people retire and their last day they never come back. They're burned out, they're done, or they don't have a retirement party because they don't think anybody would go. Like, so this magazine, I feel like I'm possessed. Like, I feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And this is my offering to the fire service in the sense of, trying to figure this out and, and put it in a language, in a dialogue that makes sense to us, not a bunch of jargon that we don't care about. I challenge firefighters because I know how we think, and if we can just start there, it's a better read. It's a better magazine. It's a better dialogue. And, I don't want to waste people's time either. Like I'm trying to figure this out for myself still. Like I'm in the middle of it, right? I work. I just got home this morning. I was on duty yesterday. So I'm still in the middle of it, and I don't want to retire in 7 years and be a miserable person to be around. And, so I'm learning this and I'm building this as I fly it. So, and it's not, I haven't figured it all out. I figured some things out. But,
so how does someone that's adopted this mindset, this renewal, this ownership, that's still active in the fire service, take those concepts and bring them to their crew, to their firehouse, potentially to the fire ground, and actually put, concept into action to make actionable change and, better the people around you?
I think you just have to get back to what makes you happy, and that version of yourself, as close to that neutral as you can be, as real as you can be. We talked about vulnerability. We talk about connection. Like, if I can find, it's not a balance, it's a rhythm in my life that I can sustain, then that's the holy grail right there. There's no balance. I don't have balance at all. When I look at what I'm doing with Crackyl and my workload, my travel, trying to be a husband and a parent, like a father, there's no balance. Some things take more time and energy at different times. And, I have to, if I'm going to do this Crackyl thing, I can't lose everything else. So it has to happen as well as, that's preloaded. Otherwise, again, what's the point? So that, again, firefighters that, again, I'm fortunate. So it's all, I think framing things in your life is important. Find something that actually makes sense to you. We can get frustrated. I can go to work and I can be frustrated all day. I can complain about things we don't have. I can work with people that, are complaining that I don't want to be around, like whatever. Like, or I can go to work. I can try to control what I can. I can be a good soldier that way. I can do my job. I can do my best to want to be there, not just do the things, but want to be there. We learn more by what we see than we ever say. So I think our mannerisms, I think just how we carry ourselves, ask you how your day's going. I need to know how you're doing. Just by saying hi to you, I can figure out what you're, see if there's something you're worried about or not, judging by, your character. And like, those are the things that, it's the simple things that make the big differences, and allow room for each day is going to be different, and they should be. I don't want every day to be the same. So, but, having hobbies and stuff to polarize you on your off days is important, and understand it. And even if the fire service is your hobby, like you run a company and you're training and doing all these things on the side, just know that if you got hurt or injured tomorrow, what does that look like for you? How would you handle that? And whose problem is it? Are you going to project that onto other people, or are you going to absorb it and then bring people in to help you deal with it, which would be ideal,
So is there because I don't know what the right phrase would be, but call it maybe enlightened, or people that have adopted this model, this ownership and, self-care. Is there a burden at all to evangelize it, or is it more of a matter of living a certain way and letting people notice it on their own? Or do you think that there is any sort of burden to not only do it yourself, but also try to get people to join?
Yeah, I think you got to hang around the right people, is another part of it. Again, it's all fragile. Like everything I've said, again, my life could be turned upside down tomorrow. And but for now, this is the way I'm looking at it. And, I think you have to preserve what you can. You have to control what you can. Those are, if you do even that, I think you're heading in the right direction. We can't handle, there's certain calls and things that are going to happen that completely derail us, period. That will happen. And it's unfortunate if that happens. And that's not really what I'm speaking to, if that makes sense. I'm speaking to the day-to-day grind, firefighters, bitching and complaining about things they have no control over. What is the point? What is the point? Like, again, like firefighter, like I can find problems. Like I can find all kinds of problems. And I can go, whatever that saying is, and find a problem for that solution. Like we can do that. But that doesn't make sense to me to do that. How can we, when I'm there for the time that I'm there, how can I control my space that I'm in and occupying for that day? Part of it has already started by the version of me that showed up for duty, and then, do the job and just try to own what I can is really, I find that I can be in the kitchen and hear all the conversations and the, different levels of firefighters, junior firefighters bitching about things that they can't control. And it's like, and then, you can come back in the kitchen later on and they're still having the same conversation. Like, at some point you have to move on from that, because you're ruminating and you're not allowing yourself to polarize. You're not allowing yourself to do better if you can if you're going to, stay in that headspace. Like, so I just, you have to learn, those are boundaries, and those are premeditated in my opinion.
How does a captain or a person in leadership position go about managing those expectations inside of a station, to say, like, this is not a place where that is going to be our culture, and then holding to adherence to that line?
Yeah. It's tricky. It's create distractions is good. Break it up. find something to do, kind of break up the conversations, or it's not easy because they'll do it behind your back. They'll, you walk in the room and then they're still talking about it. Like it's important to them. Like, I think when I look at that, when I look at firefighters that are, talking about all the things and the goings on and being stressed about what they're talking about, it is exactly that. It's stress, because we are highly intelligent people. Us ruminating on certain things. Maybe maybe it is a new chief or something that's in your department. All the things are changing. And it's like, for me, I look at that as we're worried. We're worried that what we have and the things that we like might change, it scares the shit out of us, because this is kind of our second home. I shouldn't say kind of, it is our second home. Yeah. It's our space. So again, if another person was to come in my house and start moving my shit around, I would lose my mind. And that's what happens in the firehouse. So when I hear these things, I frame it as like, it's stress. Our firefighters are trying to figure out what's happening. And that's a conversation, but let's have a constructive conversation. Let's not just talk about points and different things. Let's see if we can kind of unpack it a little bit and look at that. And the more they talk about it, the more stress it actually means that is happening for them. So,
if you see it as that outlet, like, which I think you're dead on in the idea that, like, you're ruminating, and oftentimes we have a little bit too much time to sit at the kitchen table and ruminate. Is it a helpful practice to stop it in its tracks, or does there need to be some sort of release mechanism for those like underlying stresses, to just walk into the kitchen and say, we're done, we're not talking about this anymore, no more? Then I think you potentially lend yourself to people sitting on it and compressing these emotions down into themselves, but maybe it's a matter of somehow finding a healthy outlet. I don't know what that exactly would be necessarily, though.
Yeah. I mean, it's, again, those conversations don't get suppressed. I think they're important to have, because, again, it's because they care. They're talking about things because they care, and they're trying to figure it out. Right. So it's not suppressing it, but the tail shouldn't wag the dog, right? You shouldn't have a 3-year firefighter or whatever controlling the narrative in the room for something that they don't fully understand. I mean, they can get that off their chest, but eventually, okay, it's like, we'll move forward, or we'll frame that conversation differently. Again, it's stress. It's stress. It could be, we need to talk about these things. But again, if we really look at why we're talking about these things and the level at which and how long we talk about them is ultimately stress. We care and we're worried. So that's how it should be framed, in my opinion,
Yeah.
Not just bitching and complaining, because it's not just bitching. It can be bitching and complaining, but it really is concern and maybe worry, so let's unpack that. Let's unpack that side of it, not, go down. And again, the tail shouldn't wag the dog. I shouldn't jump. You shouldn't complain down, right? As a captain, you can't jump in the room and start complaining down. Then, I've missed it. So you listen, and you should complain up.
Yeah. Our union president has a great phrase. A good friend of mine says that complaining without solutions is just bitching, right? And so he said, we're happy to complain. We'll complain all day, but we have to have a solution and some sort of resolution to the problem, or else we're just, whining in circles, right? And so, like, I've really adopted that idea, not only in my fire service career, but also like at my house, which, like, if my kids have a complaint about something, I'm like, awesome. I'm happy that you're like airing your grievance, but what are we going to do about it? I want you to come with a solution as well. And we can talk about whether that solution is a good solution or a bad solution. We can work together on that collaboratively, but I don't just want to hear that you're upset about something. I want to hear some sort of what are we going to do about it as well?
Right. Well, I mean, and the scenario for me is, okay, so let's say we show up for duty. Let's say we're talking about, maybe we're going to hire more firefighters or something. Maybe that's what we're talking about. So then we talk about it. We do the things, and then you come back the next shift and we're talking about it again. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. Nothing's resolved. And, you know, the whole solutions and things, some things we can find solutions, and some things I don't have any control over any of that. So that's stuff where I'm saying that has to be, that's where the tail shouldn't wag the dog.
Yeah.
It's like, so now this topic is hijacking our day.
Yeah.
I can't fix that. There is no solution and there's not enough information. So to allow members to continue to spiral doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, let's either bitch about something else or, you know, or we'll make something up. But either we can't just keep coming back. And usually what happens is you'll have something like that, you know, again, these are great. These things need to be aired out. But what happens is, okay, from our crew, maybe we've already dealt with all of the angles and the different things in that conversation. What happens is someone else will come and work on our crew and they haven't heard all the conversation. So then they bring it up. Hey, did you hear we're doing this? And then it all comes up.
Yep.
And this is where it's not a captain's problem. It's not a chief's problem. It's a you problem that you have to say, guys, we just talked about this for like 6 hours yesterday or the other day. Like, let's do something else. Like that's that ownership side to me. It's like, because you're giving up your headspace. You know, you're giving up so much of yourself for something that you can't change in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
What is the point?
Yeah.
Other than there is a form, there is a way that does kind of create some connection with that crew.
Yeah.
At some point, it needs to evolve or just do something else.
I think the most peculiar thing about it is the unified fire service. The fact that, you know, you're in Canada, I'm in Minnesota. I've talked to people from all across the country. How are all of our kitchen tables functioning the same way? It doesn't make any sense. Like, how is it possible that, like, I've literally sat at the kitchen table you're describing and, like, it's the same. No matter where you put the firehouse, the conversations that happen inside the walls are the same. It's very bizarre. And there is this unified fire service across the world that somehow, despite cultural guidelines and who are the members and what are their ages, the table somehow results in the same thing. And so I'll use that as a transition to my next question, which is, you know, as you go to build Crackyl, you obviously seek out people in these various different disciplines to advise you and to, be, experts in these various fields. How do you find these people, and how do you know that the person you found is the right fit for what Crackyl wants to accomplish?
Are you talking more on like the running Crackyl or?
Yeah, I mean, both, truthfully. I mean, your administrative staff, you know, obviously has a heavy hand in what is produced and the quality standards and the information that goes out, but then also people that you have, you know, write articles and contribute to, say, like Ryan, right? Ryan's going to be your fitness guy. How do we know that Ryan has the same mission in mind that you have? And what is that connective tissue that makes all the contributors on the same page?
Yeah, I mean, so operationally for Crackyl, there's, these people are my family. The way, you know, they come in when they're working on that side of the fence. What I've created has to be preserved, and it has to, you know, that integrity has to be there. So I've tried to create, you know, media that doesn't have any of the power. It's the people that have the answers for us. You know, I'm trying to connect them with the people that need it, which is us. So I'm getting media back. We're not the talent. We're the media.
Yeah.
So I'm a conduit. That's what Crackyl is. I am, I've kind of, I'm searching for these answers, and I'm trying to get them. So it's a conduit where I think a lot of media, not just in the fire service, but in media in general, has started to try to be the talent. And I think that doesn't mean it. That doesn't make any sense to me. From a contributor side, what we're trying to do is raise the voices in the fire service. We're not suppressing them. If you have something to say, I want to hear how you would say it. I want to, we learn the best from each other. And so I think the best way that Crackyl can serve the fire service is to raise the voices that we need to be hearing, and the way that they want to tell it, because different ways will, different voices will resonate with different people, and different times in your life. You might write something, but it's because you have young kids at home. It may not resonate with a firefighter that's got 2 years to go to retire. However, so you know what I mean? Like the more you can take one topic, and I could write it 100 different ways, with different lenses, with different angles. And then, you may not get all of them, but when you get one that resonates with you, it could be your moment. It could be how you re-engage, So it's just, different voices matter. I think we have over 400 contributors.
Wow.
Which is insane.
And to get kind of the core of that, when you go to make that selection, how do you go about deciding a voice that has validity? That sounds maybe more harsh than it needs to, but in terms of there's a billion voices in the fire service, and all too often we feel that we have an important voice. And so someone has to be the sift to say, hey, this is worthwhile going out to the masses, or at least this opinion should be heard. How do you go about sifting through the potential entries or the potential voices?
I mean, it's like part of my job is to raise voices, and, and you just said it, like there's so many voices. So why would we only listen to 40 voices? That doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah. So that is part of it. And you kind of, if we have a contributor that kind of sends us the meat and potatoes of what they're trying to say, but it doesn't really kind of, it's missing the mark, or it's, we can fix that. We can help that. So I would rather have an article that's more about an idea or a concept that's poorly written than to not have it at all. And then we'll go from there, but we try to keep something where it's positive, I guess, is the other side. I mean, we can go down those rabbit holes where we become part of the problem, not part of the solution. So that's a big part of I think, when I look at an article in Crackyl, it's, we're not here to state the obvious. We're here to figure out, who's figuring it out? How are they figuring it out? What did they do? How did they come to that conclusion? And a lot of times I think people just sharing, there's been a few stories here lately that some people had some medical issues, different things, and then writing their story and sending it to me was, therapeutic in its own way. And it was part of their healing process, and I know that from myself. Like I'm writing a book right now, and just writing my own stories I didn't even know half the shit was there that I was writing about. And it was like, it was, there's some healing that happens, and not from a pity party. It's just connecting a dot that you didn't really have time to stop to think about. And then you write, and it becomes an organized thought, so again, for us, it's important that we have these voices, and that's what makes Crackyl what it is. It's, again, we're serving the fire service. We're we're just trying to figure it out like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's only as good as the voices. It's only as good as our contributors. And then we try to make, you know, as far as the magazine side, we'll try to bring that to life and have something we've never had before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So with that, what does the future landscape for Crackyl look like? What's the 2-year, 5-year, 10-year plan?
Yeah, I hope, you know, Crackyl continues to reach every firehouse, fire station, fire department, you know, across North America and beyond, really. You know, when we work, what I'm working on is trying to create a better dialogue for us and a better benchmark for us. And our content is legacy content. It's evergreen content. So, you know, when a fire department subscribes to Crackyl and brings us, you know, brings the magazine into their stations, you know, you're creating a library in this content. Not every magazine has the same stories in the sense of all talking about retirement or all talking about different things. We talk about everything. We talk, you know, parenting to finances to, you know, generational trauma, you name it. So the point is you're kind of building a library in this space. And that is important. It's like a, you know, encyclopedia is happening, you know, like the old days when you'd buy the whole set, and that's happening. It's by design. So that's exciting for us, is to be able to, once a fire department brings Crackyl in, that magazine doesn't get thrown out. It gets collected, and eventually you'll have a library of these in this space, you know, something you can resort back to. And, you know, magazines are coming back in the sense that, especially in our space, because once it's in the firehouse and it's bouncing around in those walls, it's a closed loop. And you know, it's unique. So I think paper and the print side is very tangible for us. It's not for everything, but I think it works very well for the fire service. And that's what I see, you know, as our pressure point of what we're trying to do is get Crackyl in more stations and in more fire departments. Like, we can't have, we want to help control some of the conversations. So instead of all these things that we talked about with, you know, ruminating on the same things, maybe, and I know it's happening because we have some fire departments that they'll sit down with the magazine and go article by article and have discussions on things. And it's actually creating a different dialogue. So, I mean, that's the win for me. Like when I hear that stuff, it's, I never thought that was, you know, really possible, you know, that the magazine would have that type of effect. You know, and then we'll continue to keep bringing more resources and things and aligning with more, you know, organizations and that can help us continue to kind of unpack what it means to serve and to be a firefighter. So that's what I see, you know, and that I have a book coming out. So Fire Engineering's publishing.
Okay.
So it kind of takes a lot of what we talked about. I've created a philosophy, and it's based on, you know, kind of the Lean Six Sigma of business and running with, you know, limiting defects and drag in your company and things, putting that against stoicism, and then looking at the basic human needs of variety, growth, certainty, uncertainty, all those things, purpose, connection, and putting that together to create balance in a firefighter's headspace, really.
Awesome.
That's the book. It's gonna be called Firefighter Sigma.
When's that coming out?
I'm hoping, I'm not sure. I'm hoping mid-year, like even July or so. We just finished the copy editing right now. So I'm excited for this, and it's going to continue this conversation that Crackyl started. And, you know, a lot of our things that we talked about today will be kind of explored even more and in more depth and kind of continue down that space. So.
Awesome. So I don't want to keep you all day as much as I could talk to you all day. Maybe we'll have you back when the book comes out. We'll talk about the book. I love reading books and then having dialogue about them. There's one more question I want to talk to you about before I let you go, which is, I understand you have an interest in Legos.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah.
So
No.
tell me about how you got into Legos. Lego's a big part of my life because both my kids are super into them and we do them together as a family. So I read an article about you and your giant Lego collection and, tell me about it. How on earth did you get into it and you seem to be pretty darn good at it as well.
Yeah. Honestly, I fell into it. So I end up, my kids were little and, kind of, getting them into Lego. And then I realized, okay, so we buy the sets and then there's no free build Lego because it's all built and then it's on the shelf. So I went down this whole thing of trying to get some bulk Lego for the kids, really. And then, so I was buying people selling their Lego sets and I was sifting off the pieces and parts that I wanted. And then I was reselling the rest of it back out for usually the same price that I bought it for. So I found it was just a bit of work, a bit of driving and paying attention to things, but I ended up having this Lego collection that was like, so once you start organizing your Lego into like the pieces into their own compartment, you're fucked.
Once you get a storage system.
Yeah. Now you're done. So if you're just keeping in bags and you bring it out and you'll do your things, but eventually when you're looking for parts and pieces, you can't find them because your set's so big, and then you start organizing. That's the end. So that's literally what happened. And then the kids. So again, I like using my imagination. That's a lot of Crackyl came from that. So, and seeing the kids learn that they can free build and from their mind. So we just spent a lot of time free building and I had to have the Lego to do that. So yeah. So from there, my first set was, I built the meth lab for Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
So I had the stairs coming down and I had, and I had of course the minifigures for Walter and Jesse.
That's cool.
In a hazmat suit. So that's kind of what it was. And then I built the RV, kind of made that into a meth lab. And then I built a concert. So I built all the lights, the stage, the monitor, the crowd, the security, the whole thing. Right. And then I ended up, I did a record store and I built a Game of Thrones set. And then
I saw the guitar.
Yeah. And then I built a Fender Stratocaster.
Very cool.
Yeah. So yeah. But,
yeah, at least I wanted to bring it up. I love peeling back the onions on people, the layers of not just a fireman, not just a magazine editor, but also pushing master Lego builder, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Well, Kory, let the people know where they can find more information about Crackyl, more information about you, and maybe even where to keep an eye out for the new book.
Sure. The easiest is the website. So to find all things Crackyl in the sense of our library and all the magazines that we published. So that's crackyl.com. We do have an app. And so that's there as well. And then LinkedIn is an easy way to get a hold of me. I'm speaking. I'm at different events. I'm going to be at the FRCE Mental Health Symposium coming up in Iowa. I'll be there in a couple weeks, and then speaking the following week and actually in Canada, Chiefs Association. So yeah. So you'll see me, I'm out and I'm at these shows and these trade shows. So, definitely if you hear me speaking, it may not be the fire tactics and, another way to do the cool stuff, but there is, I'd love to have, eventually have a room that's full of people. This is one of those things that hopefully we can continue to kind of keep pressure on. So.
For sure. Awesome. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for your experience. And thank you for the work that you're doing for the betterment of the fire service.
Yeah, thank you for what you're doing. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah.